Yeah, I'm here. How come you measure spherical excess when we have observations that exceed the globe curvature? Does that mean your spherical excess wasn't factoring in refraction? Because if you're claiming to measure spherical excess based off of the tilt of the theodolite, well, how come we've got observations everywhere that exceed what that spherical excess would allow? Wouldn't you have such observations with your theodolite? Isn't it funny how the averaging method you use, the RMS root mean square, just happens to conform to a reference ellipsoid? Maybe it's because the source data was cherry picked. And why would you expect to have spherical excess only on a geoid, where you have a deflection of the vertical? A deflection thus giving rise to flat spots on your globe and concave spots on your globe. And how do you tell the difference? Why is it always spherical excess when it shouldn't be? It's because you're not performing your own claim of geodetic surveying. Like, you should not be able to measure the reference ellipsoid because the reference ellipsoid neither conforms to the geoid nor the terrain.
Yeah, they're basically just getting some guesstimations, essentially. A bunch of guesswork. Getting some guesstimations and then mathematically making it work on their presupposed globe.
Right. And then make some faulty assumptions, ignorant ones. They assume that their measurements should conform to a reference ellipsoid, which is absolutely wrong. Your geoid conforms to a reference ellipsoid. You need to be coming out here and measuring the geoid, folks. If you are presenting claims of measuring the reference ellipsoid, you're doing it wrong by your own method. And this is because your geoid affects what is plumb and level locally. Everywhere you go, it's going to be a little bit different by your claim. So when I'm watching a theodolite that's 69 miles away, what's level for me is not going to be the same level for somebody 69 miles away in conformance with the reference ellipsoid. It's going to have a geoidal variance. And ultimately what this presents is a situation where your very own claim to measurement is impossible to replicate reliably. It's impossible to show that it's a globe, because your own measurements need to be accounted for the deflection of the vertical and for astronomical refraction comporting to the geoid, as well as atmospheric refraction. This is not flat earthers saying it. But what's even worse than all of this is the theodolite is being claimed to produce a reliable measurement where it is plumb to level over a vast distance. That's a funny thing. Like, how much of a level do I need to gain a high enough resolution to minimize the tilt error? If you have like a rifle scope and you spot a freaking deer half a mile away, and you so much as like have a gnat land on your fingers, you pull the trigger, you're going to be off. The further the distance means the higher precision that's required of your measuring device and your skill level to use it. And so let's say ideally you do have a perfectly level setup where you're plumb to level for a distance of 69 miles. But then by your own account, you don't know if you are accurate enough due to geoidal undulations, because there could be a local deflection of the vertical where you are, and there could be a local deflection of the vertical where the reciprocating theodolite is at the far end. It's looking back. Which means level isn't level, plumb isn't plumb. It just turns into this hot, holy mess.
Right, so DJ, I thought those pillars was just some like failed landscaping project for a golf course. And when you showed me that there are natural pillars all over the place and that they actually have place names after these natural pillar formations. And then when you look at these pillars and you see that they're obviously not natural with the high precision cut angles and spacing, it really is curious what on earth is going on.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, crazy stuff, isn't it? Yeah, so what's interesting, I thought, okay, like I saw it on a video I was watching, there was just a few pictures of them, and he said it was from 1998 or something, and then when I looked into it, I'm like, okay, it's not from 1998. So I looked up some images on Google, and there was some links to some Facebook groups about them, and people were saying it's this old the remains of an old distillery roadhouse type place from the 20s, from the Prohibition era. Anyway, then I looked that up. I looked where it is. Turns out that was nonsense. And some other people, were saying that it's from like the 70s, from a hotel that was meant to be getting built there, but they never ended up building the hotel. So I was like, okay, surely there's some pictures, of that part of the beach, being it's California coast and previous, or, sometime before 1980 at least, or something like that. Or sometimes, actually, I couldn't find any pictures of that before the 2000s, I don't think. I think 2011 or something was the only picture I could find. Anyway, I thought, okay, surely there's got to be some pictures from surveying sites and stuff like that, USGS or something from before the late 70s or whenever it was that they were meant to have put those pillars there. Can't find a single picture. It's kind of weird. So I just put the picture into ChatGPT. I'm like, what are these? And first it's like, bring it up, because I can't remember exactly what it said first. It said some crazy shit first. 1 second. Okay. All right, so I put a picture in. I said, what are we looking at? It says, what you're looking at are rock-cut architectural columns, not freestanding pillars that were later buried. In plain terms, these columns are carved directly out of bedrock as part of the facade. Anyway, it went on to go on for ages about how they match Roman, Hellenistic rock-cut temples, Nabatean sites like Petra, Greco-Roman, Eastern Mediterranean, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so obviously that was incorrect. So I said, because I didn't tell it anything about the picture, so I said the structures are at the beach at Half Moon Bay, California, adjacent to the Carlton Ritz Hotel. Said, thanks. Now that you've given the location, I can identify what you're looking at. The rock forms near Half Moon Bay, California, adjacent to the Ritz-Carlton, aren't ancient carved columns at all. They are natural sandstone formations shaped by wave erosion, wind and salt weathering, layered sedimentary bedding, differential erosion of harder and softer layers. The cliffs near Half Moon Bay are made of sandstone and siltstone layers that were deposited millions of years ago. Anyway, went on about that, which is obviously incorrect as well. So I said, are you sure they seem to be from a construction in the past? Some say it was from the foundations of an older hotel that was never built. Can you go deep into search and find that for me? It says, yes, there is a real historical explanation for the structures you're talking about at the beach near the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay. According to local history records, beachside columns and pilings that resemble ruins or foundation remnants are not ancient architecture or natural rock formations. They were part of a 1970s era foundation project for a hotel that was started and then abandoned. So after that, it doesn't really give any information about it. So I was asking it, like, I'd like to see photos from the 70s when they were built. And it says, yeah, I can't find any photographs or anything like that. It gave me a link to some places that I could go try searching, which is like the records from the I forget what it's called. I said it a minute ago. USGS, is that it? Yeah, USGS. Anyway, when I was looking through the historical records, I was trying to find some old pictures of that part of the coastline to see if they were there before the 70s. And what I found was, which I'll put it in the side chat. It's like, this is from a PDF. Okay, so I think it says 1965. And it says Pillar Point, Half Moon Bay. And Pillar Point isn't those exact structures. It's not far away. It's still in Half Moon Bay. So I went on to Google, typed in Pillar Point, and then here's like a little screenshot. So we got Pillar Point 7, Pillar Point Beach, Pillar Point Harbor. So I was like, that's interesting. I was like, why? Like, it was kind of like, it was, that area is kind of called Pillar Point, the Pillar Point area. So I looked up like what is Pillar Point, and that's where it started giving me information about how there were big, giant, prominent pillars that were naturally formed, and they were there for a long time, it seems, because even on old Spanish maps, which I'm trying to find the old Spanish maps now. Yeah, they called it something to do with pillars as well. So that's where I'm up to. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it just seems a little strange that you'd have both coinciding at the same place, claims of natural formations of pillars and then artificial pillars.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's very strange. So they're mostly, yeah, well, it said that the big pillars, the big prominent pillars at Pillar Point have been eroded away or something like that. So they're no longer there, but and I can't find any pictures of them. But it just looks weird as well, like how did they push pillars into the side of the cliff like this back then? Yeah, it's interesting because I was watching a video yesterday about it was like the big giant train line that they built over the Florida Keys, I think. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that blew my mind. And then the Fort Jefferson compound.
Yeah, so that train line, like they can't work out how they would have been able to build it because the materials that you needed, including the fresh water that you needed to mix all of that concrete and stuff like that, it was like just the logistics and stuff. It doesn't seem to match up. And then like pictures of it being constructed and stuff. Like there's pictures of it kind of like after construction. Like most of these old world pictures, it kind of looks like renovation more than construction. And then you look at old maps from like this, I think it's like the 1600s and stuff like that. That was all land where that railway is. It's all land. And it's almost like there was like they had to, like it took them, they reckon it only took them 7 years to build this railway. And it doesn't make sense that they would have been
No
able to
way.
build it in 7 years. But they were saying like what makes more sense is that they would have been able to like excavate it over that 7 years and renovate it, and like revamp it or something like that, rather than actually build that crazy thing in 7 years.
Man, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The old Spanish colonial settlements of North America, particularly the American Southwest, is just strange to me. Because the history is like Cortez, who conquered the Aztecs, came up the California coast. This is in like the 1500s. And after the Jesuit order was underway, they started founding all kinds of missions all over the world to include the American Southwest. And the Jesuit order set up mining activities all over the Spanish Southwest. And all of this took place well before the quote unquote gold rush of 1849. Easily 1 to 200 years of activity preceding this. What was the Spanish up to? They were part of they were the western branch of the Habsburg Empire. They owned all that American Southwest territory.
Wow.
So people feel like excavating out in the middle of nowhere and then find like walls and walls of bricks and brick structures. And they'd say, oh man, this just must be an old Spanish mine.
It's so crazy.
Right. So is it possible too? I mean, kind of weird, but like rail lines. So we've got railway lines all over America. Itself is a really interesting bit of history just from the mainstream perspective, how this came to be. But there's something about the rail lines. I mean, maybe these began under originally a mining operation way back when, not for trains, but for mining rail cars and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the gauge, the width of the rails conform to like Roman chariot standards.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. What is going on?
Man, it's so crazy. The
And then
more I
the
look into
Roman,
this stuff, it's just
dude, the Roman cement all over. Have you seen this stuff in America?
no.
Oh man, I got it. There's so Conspiracy R Us did this whole series on it. A series like you do a video and then a year later another video follow up. But so they're building structures around in America today that are built using a recipe uh, from ancient Rome. But the issue is that recipe was supposedly lost during the time period that these structures went up and was rediscovered only much more recently in history. So where'd they get the recipe for the Roman cement?
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. I was just trying to look up the channel that you were talking about. Conspiracy or Us? Oh yeah, I found it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's got a few videos on this very topic. It's just crazy, dude.
What's up, Dave Hinkle? Good to see you, man.
Hey, DJ, Yoder, what's going on?
Not much, man. We just thought we'd liven up the room a bit because there's nobody in any channels anywhere.
Yeah, kind of hitting a little slow period here, whatever.
Yep.
Just still trying to speak some truth, right?
Got that right.
Nothing to report here from Kentucky. It's a pretty shitty day, kind of rainy, but other than that, it's not a ball. So,
Still not a ball.
yeah,
Damn it.
it's never going to be a ball, man. I used to think it was a ball, but then I actually looked to see if it was, and it's not. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, there's not much we can do about that. Yeah, Yoda, this looks like a pretty trippy channel. Lots of interesting stuff I'm seeing. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm gonna make a. Yeah, I think I'm gonna combine the Flat Earth Central server as like a kind of like a 2-in-1 server. So it's gonna be about Flat Earth and also Old World and ancient history like megalithic, Old World stuff, that kind of thing as well. Because I think that'll help bring a lot of people in, and it's also a super interesting topic, and they're definitely connected. So I'm gonna make a second section that's just dedicated to old world stuff, and have all the different channels with all different information and stuff like that as well. Might even change the name of it from Flat Earth Central to like I was thinking maybe Truth Central, or I don't know, maybe the name of my YouTube channel, which is Pickled Minds, or Critical Think. That was the three that I was contemplating.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed this topic, the old world topic's kind of blowing up on YouTube recently. There's tons and tons of channels coming out, and they're getting tons of views, which is good. You know, it's a topic that's connected to Flat Earth, I think. Or it's kind of like-minded, critical thinking people, at least.
I think the genesis of a lot of this came from that Philip Jurgen guy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Say that again. You were like cutting out a bit.
So there was a YouTuber. His name is Philip. He's from Moscow or something. Philip Jurgen, and he was pointing out how even in his own country, he was pointing out that old structures were buried under the earth, preserved by mud. And I think this kind of gave rise to the whole Tartarian mud flood movement that sprung up after it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. There was like a famous Russian I forget his name. Famous Russian historian. It's kind of like alternate history.
Yeah, Anatoly Fomenko.
Ah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. I haven't looked into it much, but yeah, I was. His name was mentioned a bunch when I was watching the documentary about the Great Wall of China deception. That's another trip, man. That Great Wall of China, like over 13,000 miles long. I think the longest.
Gentlemen trying to suggest that our historical narrative has been misrepresented to us. No way.
No way. No, definitely not. It's exactly like they teach us at the school.
Yeah, at some point you go from it's crazy to believe alternative history to it's crazy to believe in the mainstream history.
Yeah, that's where the craziness comes into it, for sure.
Or the same thing with America and Australia. You've got like all these amazing, beautiful, magnificent works of architecture going up almost all at the same time. And there'd be like 50 of these building projects attributed to one designer and his company.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? They do that a
Yeah.
lot. There's always
Yeah.
like some architect or someone who wasn't even an architect. They're like, this guy was like a doctor, but he also invented this and that and all of these different things, and it's crazy.
By the age of 24, he taught himself surveying and architecture design. Took his inspiration from Berlusconi in Rome.
Yeah, man, I was watching that exact thing yesterday about like some old world, like, or not old world, but some old aircrafts. Before it was like a steam powered 50 horsepower aircraft that could carry a dozen people in the 1800s. And it was like, yeah, he was a doctor and he also invented like, and there was just the biggest list of things you could ever imagine that this guy had invented. Like, how the hell could this guy invent all of these different things? Same with the architects, like you were saying, like that are responsible for designing these like grand structures. And it's like, oh, and they also design this one and that one and this one, and it's like, what?
Well, looks like we got a few new people popping in. Oh, that's Professor Triangle. He's a flat earther. Never mind. Anyway. The subject you guys are talking about, very interesting as far as going back in history and what we've been misled about. And these buildings are right in people's faces that couldn't have been built by whatever, you know. But how do we verify any of that stuff? I hate to be Davy Downer, but, you know, how do you verify over even 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah, you can't verify it. It's just a big puzzle, and you can put little pieces together here and there. It's fascinating stuff to look into, but it's always going to be a level of speculation.
Yeah, exactly, DJ. I mean, speculating, it just seems like obviously that things were a lot different way back when than what we've been told. But I know that's pretty vague, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Even looking into people that are credited with suggesting that the Earth's a globe, like Pythagoras and people like that, once you start digging into the proof that they even existed, you can't really find anything. And even the historians agree that they can't confirm anything that we get taught in school about Pythagoras or that he even existed. They're like, yeah, someone named Pythagoras probably existed somewhere in Greece, but we can't confirm anything beyond that. It's all just stories. It's like they say, oh, the Greeks loved making up these mystical figures like Eratosthenes, Pythagoras.
Yeah, and then they attribute everything to them, just like these architects. Crazy.
But yeah, I get your point, Dave. But the thing is, we've already established empirically that it's absolutely not a globe. And that's the information we need to get to people, first and foremost. But I think digging into more things is very important to try to unlock more information. How did it what is this place? we know that it's not a globe. We know that it's a flat plane. We know that they've lied about history.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, DJ. There's nothing wrong with trying to put the puzzle pieces together, and there is a lot of physical things right in our face, buildings and stuff like that are just impossible for it to be what they're telling us it is. But
Yep.
As far as figuring it all out, good luck. But there's nothing wrong with trying, right?
Exactly, man. What I find even more fascinating is the megalithic stuff. And there's no way we're going to work that out, but that stuff's just crazy. Giant megalithic structures and those big giant blocks that are like too big for modern machinery to lift and that kind of thing. Like, what the hell was going on back then?
I mean, it's not
It's
a bunch
almost
of
like they
Jews
were
that just moved the
harvesting.
blocks into place.
It's almost like they were harvesting some kind of energy from the atmosphere. But I'm not going to say the word ether, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you for sure. Yep, something.
I would go out on sort of a limb and say it's at least obvious that they had something figured out back then that was hidden for whatever reason, and now we're trying to figure out what it is. Again, vague, but y'all know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Damn, look at this thing that Cider Filler just put in the side chat. That's crazy. That's huge. It's also crazy that all this megalithic stuff's like freaking buried. Apparently they just found like another Mayan temple as well, like some crazy Mayan temple complex in the jungle just recently.
You know what I find weird too? Like how they find throughout Europe, even how they're like digging up old Roman villages. Like how does that just happen? How do you just like lose track of a Roman town?
Yeah.
like oh geez, I'm standing on a mound of dirt and there's like Roman villas underneath my house. Huh, weird. You know that you lose the culture and history loses track of these places. Like you got to figure. I mean, being Roman towns, they had been on their own maps. They had been taxed. There are all these records all over the place, and there were people presumably living there. And you think that like almost anywhere else that people just continuously live and expand and grow out from where they are. And when your house needs a new roof, you get a new roof laid in. You continue farming and tilling the land, and so on and so forth. But no, I mean, in this case, you got Roman villas that are buried under the mud in Germany and England. And
Yeah, it's crazy. Apparently, like there's a big highway just near our house here in Poland. And when my wife was young, there was no highway here, and then they built the highway. When they dug up the ground to build the highway, they found all of these like ancient like artifacts under the ground and like sculptures, and they dated them to like 4,000 years old or something like that. And some of them look like freaking I don't know the name of it, but you know those dinosaurs with the long necks?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like them. And they were trying to like pass them off as like horses. They're like, no, these are just horses, but they look like those freaking weird dinosaurs with the long necks. You see them in some like ancient like wall art depictions, like I forget which country, but yeah, there's just this particular. It's not like a big giant dinosaur or anything like that. It's like a sort of camel-sized thing with like with really long necks. Yeah. Anyway, it's just crazy. Like they just discover stuff. They had no idea any of that stuff was there. They dig up a highway and they just find all of this stuff.
If I remember my dinosaur education, I think you're talking about a brontosaurus. I could be wrong.
Check.
We've been joined by Nell. Do they want to talk? Hello, Nell. Are you there? They want to talk right now. Back to you, DJ.
Yeah, that's the one, Dave. Yeah, kind of like that. Yep.
So just that little piece of evidence you were talking about right there, you're saying they supposedly dated that to 4,000 years ago, but the dinosaur story is millions of years, right? And asteroids and all that crap. So
Yep.
Totally out of whack.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah, that same type of dinosaur, the Brontosaurus type of dinosaur, there's like really like ancient artworks and cave art and stuff like that that's like really, really old that depicts them. And then there's tales of like native cultures, like Aboriginal type cultures. I forget exactly which country. I'll ask my wife when she comes back upstairs. But yeah, they all reckon that they existed as well. Those same ones with the long necks. And there's reports of them being spotted deep in the jungle or something like that. Even just like a couple of 100 years ago. Anyway, I need to look into that one a bit more.
Yeah, obviously there could be all kinds of different kinds of creatures, different various sizes that they're extinct now for whatever reason, or who knows.
Yep.
We can't limit the creator to what he can create, you know. He can create DNA and he can create little insects and crap like that, so why not big things too? But anyway.
Yep.